The third time felt different because I arrived early. Not early in the hopeful way, early the way you get to an airport when you don't trust yourself to remember your own name. I sat in a molded plastic chair and lined up my papers, even though I knew which ones they were. My phone stayed face down. I didn't want to see the clock. I didn't want to catch myself counting minutes like they were bargaining chips. This wasn't a date. It was an appointment. That's how I'd reframed it after the second no show appointments get kept whether or not you're excited about them. Appointments don't break your heart. They just happen or they don't. The room smelled like toner and lemon disinfectant. The clerk behind the counter had the kind of practiced neutrality that comes from watching other people's lives turn on signatures you don't remember by lunchtime. Her pen was tethered to the desk with a coiled cord. I kept thinking how strange it was that something so small needed to be restrained. 10 minutes passed the time. Then 15. I didn't feel angry. I felt hollow, like a theater after the last matinee when the lights stay on because someone forgot to turn them off. The disappointment had burned itself out on the second time. What was left was a dull sense of having misread the instructions to my own life. I noticed him because he didn't move. Most people shift in those chairs. They cross and uncross their legs, check their phones, sigh too loudly. He sat with his hands folded loosely in his lap, eyes on the counter, posture neither rigid nor slouched. He looked patient in a way that wasn't performative, not resigned, just still. Handsome, yes, but not in a way that reached for attention. His jacket was worn at the cuffs. His hair had a part that suggested it had been decided years ago and never revisited. When he finally looked over, it wasn't curiosity. It was recognition, the kind you have when you realize someone else is playing the same quiet game. The clerk cleared her throat. She glanced at my empty side of the room, then at his, then back at me. "Well," she said, half smiling like she was about to comment on the weather, "that handsome guy over there has been waiting all day, too. You two should just get married." It was meant to be nothing. A joke to cut the awkwardness. The sort of thing people say when they want to acknowledge a discomfort without taking responsibility for it. But the words didn't bounce off me the way jokes usually do. They landed solid. Practical? I laughed once, short and surprised, more breath than sound. He did the same. Then there was a pause that felt oddly ceremonial, like the quiet before someone opens a sealed envelope. I searched myself for the alarm, the instinctive recoil. The voice that says, "This is wrong. This is reckless. This is a story you'll regret telling." Nothing answered. What I felt instead was relief, not the kind that makes you smile, but the kind that loosens something you didn't know you were holding. I realized that whatever I had been waiting for wasn't coming. Not today. Maybe not ever. And I was tired of guarding an empty space as if it were sacred. I looked at him. Really looked. He met my eyes without bravado. There was curiosity there, yes, but also caution. Not fear, discernment, like someone considering a bridge, not a cliff. "Okay," I heard myself say. The word surprised me with its steadiness. It wasn't brave. It wasn't dramatic, it was calm. He blinked once, then nodded. "Okay," he said back, as if confirming a time. The clerk's smile faltered. Jokes aren't supposed to survive contact. She straightened, glanced between us, recalibrating. The room changed the way rooms do when they realize something real is happening inside them. "IDs," she said, professional now. We stood. There was a moment where our shoulders nearly touched and didn't. Close enough to register warmth, far enough to remain strangers. I slid my identification across the counter. He did the same. Our names were spoken aloud, spelled carefully. I noticed his voice, lower than I'd expected, unhurried. He noticed my middle initial and smiled faintly, like it explained something. There was no romance in the process. It was all forms and boxes, and the clerk's voice reading language she'd read 1,000 times before. But there was intimacy in the ordinariness of it, in the way we both leaned in slightly to hear, in the way we both nodded at the same clause, as if we'd agreed to more than we understood. At one point, the clerk looked up. "This is binding," she said not unkindly. "Once we proceed, it's official." "I know," I said. "So do I," he said a beat later. That was the moment the power shifted, not loudly, not triumphantly. The joke had become a contract. The waiting had turned into action. The institution had accepted our impulse and given it weight. Whatever else this was, it was no longer imaginary. We signed. My hand didn't shake. Neither did his. 10 minutes later, the clerk stamped the papers and slid them toward us. "Congratulations," she said, because that was the word assigned to this outcome. We looked at each other, both of us smiling now in a tentative, almost apologetic way. As if we'd agreed to share an umbrella in a storm neither of us had summoned. Outside, the light felt too bright. We stood on the steps, newly married, with nowhere particular to go. He started, then stopped. "Coffee," he tried instead. I nodded. "Coffee." We walked side by side, not holding hands. It felt important not to rush that part. To let our bodies catch up to the fact. Over coffee, we traded essentials. Names again, jobs. The broad outlines of how we'd ended in that room on that day. No confessions. No promises. Just context. "I don't think this fixes anything," I said at one point, surprising myself with the honesty. He smiled, not offended. "I don't think it's supposed to," he said. "I think it just interrupts." That felt right. By the time we finished our cups, the world hadn't changed. Cars still passed. People still hurried by with plans that had nothing to do with us. Loneliness hadn't vanished, it had rearranged itself. Taken on edges. A witness. That night, alone in my apartment, I set the papers on the kitchen table and stared at my name beside his. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a fact. I slept better than I had in weeks. In the days that followed, we moved carefully. We talked. We didn't pretend this was anything other than what it was. Sometimes the absurdity of it would hit us, and we'd laugh until it hurt. Sometimes it would feel unbearably serious. Sometimes it would like nothing at all. People asked how we met. We told the truth. Most didn't know what to do with it. I don't know what this will become. I don't know if it was courage or exhaustion that made me say yes. I only know that on that day, in that room, waiting stopped being passive. Loneliness drove the decision. But it didn't drive recklessly. It drove like someone who has been lost long enough to recognize a road, even if they don't know where it ends. And for now, that's enough.